For almost 60 years, Bob Dylan has been a major force in the musical world. He's been inspected and dissected by his fans and critics alike. To date, he's released 75 albums, and he was a member of a fabulous supergroup, the Traveling Wilburys. He's been called a prophet, a poet, the voice of his generation, and even Judas. And in 2016, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. It's numbing to think about a career like Bob Dylan's that extends over so many decades and contains so much good music. So what I'm going to do is dig into the library and pull out my top 10 Bob Dylan albums, and I'll tell you why I like them. Now, I'm sure your list is going to be different. So, to quote from one of Bob's recordings, "Are we rolling, Bob? If so, then let's drop the needle." It's difficult to pick 10 favorite Bob Dylan albums. Many have historical significance. Some are sung better than others. Some have better songs. At the number 10 spot, I picked the Basement Tapes. These 24 songs were recorded in 1967 in the basement of a house called Big Pink that was rented by the band. The songs are raw and were captured by one or two microphones on a home tape recorder. And the album didn't come out until 8 years after it had been recorded. But it had been bootlegged. It had been rumored. But not much was really known about those basement tapes. Part of the mythology about this recording is that Bob Dylan had been injured in a serious motorcycle accident, of which very little was known. The rumor was that he had died, or that he could never play music again. The fact was, he was recuperating, and he wrote in this period over 100 songs. And these songs sounded very different than his last album, which was Blonde on Blonde. In the Basement Tapes, we find Bob Dylan relaxed, funky, and sometimes downright silly. Here are my favorite songs on the album. $1 Million Bash. I know, it's just goofy. Tears of Rage. Too Much of Nothing. Tiny Montgomery. You Ain't Going Nowhere. Nothing Was Delivered. And of course, This Wheel's on Fire. For my number 9 slot, I pick another side of Bob Dylan. This is his 4th studio album, and it was recorded in 1964. It's just Bob playing piano or guitar and harmonica. The songs are not as socially conscious as his previous songs. I like Chimes of Freedom, My Back Pages, I Don't Believe You, She Acts Like We Never Have Met, Ballad in Plain D, and It Ain't Me, Babe, which would be a big hit for the Turtles. At number 8, Highway 61 Revisited. It was released in 1965, and with this album, Bob really embraces electric rock and roll. Only one song is acoustic. In case you're wondering, Highway 61 runs from his birthplace in Minnesota through St. Louis, Memphis, New Orleans, and down to the Mississippi Delta. The songs are great, but standouts are Ballad of a Thin Man, the one with the great title, It Takes a Lot to Laugh, It Takes a Train to Cry, Highway 61 Revisited, and the 11.5-minute Desolation Row. And of course, the song that Rolling Stone magazine has said is the greatest song of all time, and that's Like a Rolling Stone. After his motorcycle accident, he kept a very low profile. Now, as I mentioned before, he was recording the Basement Tapes, but it would be a couple of years before he came back on the scene in 1967 and released John Wesley Harding, which was quite the opposite from what was happening in the music world at that time, because this is when the Beatles released Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. So for my number 7 record, I'm going to pick Nashville Skyline. The album leads off with Girl from the North Country, a duet with no other than Johnny Cash. Shortly after the album was released, Bob returns the favor by being the first guest on Johnny Cash's TV show. Other great songs are I Threw It All Away, Tonight I'll Be Staying Home With You, and everybody's favorite song on the album, Lay Lady Lay, which was a single and hit number 7 on the charts, and Nashville Skyline, the album, went to number 3. Next up at number 6 is Bringing It All Back Home, released in 1965. One side of this record is electric, the other side is acoustic, and the album kicks off with Subterranean Homesick Blues, which was used in the movie Don't Look Back, which makes it one of the earliest music videos. Other great songs are Maggie's Farm, Love Minus Zero No Limit, Bob Dylan's 115th Dream, the classic Mr. Tambourine Man, It's All Right Ma, I'm Only Bleeding, and It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. We now reach the top 5, and at position number 5, I'll pick what's been called Bob's comeback album, New Morning, released in 1970. This album came out just 4 months after the wretched mess of an album, Self-Portrait. The album starts with the great If Not For You, a song that George Harrison also recorded on All Things Must Pass. Next up is the great Day of the Locusts, about his experience of getting an honorary degree from Princeton University. Apparently, Dylan did not want the award, and the song certainly reflects that. I also like If Dogs Run Free. This is a song that I played on my radio show a lot. Side 2 starts with New Morning, and if the album only contained this song, it would still be in the top 10 albums of Bob Dylan's. I like The Man and Me, and the short, just over a minute and a half closer, Father of Night. At number 4, Bob's 39th studio album, Rough and Rowdy Ways, released in 2020. Since the 1980s, Bob has been on his never-ending tour, playing constantly, and in 2019 he decided to change the makeup of the band. And many people have said that this backing band is the best that he's played with in years. So Bob decided they should record a record. This album was warmly received and shot to number 1 in the charts. Great songs are the lead-off, I Contain Multitudes, False Prophet, My Own Version of You, Mother of Muses, Key West Philosopher Pirate, and the epic 17-minute masterpiece, Murder Most Foul, about the Kennedy assassination. A classic Dylan song and a great album. In 1975 and 1976, Bob created the Rolling Thunder Revue and played a number of concerts with a number of different musicians, including Joan Baez, Joni Mitchell, Roger McGuinn, and a host of other artists. Between the 2 legs of this tour, Bob records my number 3 album, which is Desire. I really like Bob Dylan songs that are story songs, and Desire is full of them. It starts out with Hurricane, about the falsely imprisoned Reuben Hurricane Carter, a boxer. Now, as it turns out, Bob's song was instrumental in getting Carter released from prison. This is followed by the terrific Isis. I like this song. It's a very moody travelogue type of song. Then there's Oh Sister, another great song helped by the vocal addition of the always inspiring Emmylou Harris. Side 2 opens with another great story song, Joey, the longest song on the record. It has 12 verses, and it's about a gangster, Joey Gallo. Then there's Romance in Durango, and my favorite cut on the record is Black Diamond Bay. It tells the story of a volcano erupting and destroying an island, and the narrator watching on TV the news of this, and it includes that great line, I never did plan to go anyway to Black Diamond Bay. In 1977, Bob releases his 30th studio album, and it's my number 2 pick, Timeout of Mind. He struggled through the 1980s, and his last album of original songs was the underwhelming Under the Red Sky. So Timeout of Mind roars back, winning 3 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year. The album opens with Lovesick, with Bob being in a dreary state. My favorite song is not Dark Yet. You can sense Bob's mortality as he sings, It's not dark yet, but it's getting there. Cold Irons Bound won a Grammy Award for Best Male Rock Vocal Performance. The last song on the album is the epic 16-minute Highlands, which is about his interactions with a waitress. World-weary? Yeah, but he's still hanging on. One of Bob's best. My favorite Bob Dylan album of all time, my number one pick, of course, it's Blood on the Tracks. This came out in 1975, as Bob's marriage to Sarah was falling apart. Many people think this album is very autobiographical. Bob says it's not, but when you listen to the songs, it sure seems like it. There are many great songs on this album, and two of them are standout Bob story songs, which you know that I like. The first is the lead-off, Tangled Up in Blue. This is a song I never get tired of hearing, and in fact, when the album came out, I memorized the lyrics and learned to play it on the guitar. And it contains the great lyric line, "But me, I'm still on the road, a-headin' for another joint. We always did feel the same, we just saw it from a different point of view, tangled up in blue." The other story song on the album is the 9-minute Lily, Rosemary, and the Jack of Hearts. This is one of Bob's best story songs. You've got Lily, who's a card whiz, but draws the Jack of Hearts. You got Rosemary, who's married to Big Jim, who owns a diamond mine. Then there's a bank robbery, and Big Jim is murdered, and Rosemary ends up on the gallows. Ah, but where is the Jack of Hearts? Other great songs are Simple Twist of Fate, The Scathing Idiot Wind, Meet Me in the Morning, Shelter from the Storm. Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm. And the closer, Buckets of Rain. Bob has said he's amazed that people like this album because it's so full of pain. I like the album because I think it's Bob at the top of his game. Who knows? Maybe Bob Dylan is, after all, the Jack of Hearts. Oh, and by the way, Bob Dylan holds the dubious honor of being the first rock artist to be bootlegged with this record, which was called The Great White Wonder. It started the bootlegging craze. But Bob was never one to take anything lying down, so over the years he's released 16 official bootleg recordings, including Springtime in New York, which just came out recently. Now who knows, maybe those official bootlegs, and even maybe some of the unofficial ones, could be material for a future episode. Those are my top 10 Dylan albums. I'd be curious as to what your list contains. Leave me a comment. In the meantime, put on a Dylan record and keep a rockin'. If you liked this episode, hit the like button, and you can also leave me a comment down below, and I'll respond to you. If you subscribe, we'll let you know when future episodes come out.